Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax. Except you, that person driving. Sit up and keep your eyes on the road. Your ears, though, can still listen as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Well, Goofballs, Two Giant Goofballs, the New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, Rob. Let's get talking about them sinners.
Oh, yes. Today, the centers are the center of attention.
Ooh, I see what you did there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. See my tan, by the way, as well? Oh, my gosh. I'm more tan right now than I was when I got back from the Bahamas. We went to the beach yesterday, spent a few hours. I literally fell asleep in a sun chair. It was amazing. Great time. Great time.
Old people goals.
The drinks may not have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm old before my time. I moved to Florida when I was still in my 30s, so most people wait till they're like 60s and 70s. So I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm halfway there. Let's do it.
Right? Might as well. A lot of people did that recently.
Oh, yes. So we're going to do this a little different than we've done for the last couple episodes for you guys here. You know, the last ones we did kind of a ranking of here's your top 10, top 5s, whatever the case may be, of the positions. Button by accident.
Whoops.
The big issue you run into with offensive line is it's so hard to rank against different generations because they all did different things. It's so hard to look at the tape and watch the guys that, let's be very frank, the offensive linemen are the unsung heroes of the offense. You talk about the players, talk about the quarterback, the running back, the receivers, even the more spectacular tight ends. Yet it's not often you see the casual fan going, "Oh my God, did you see the center and what he just did on that play?" So the only way for Rob and I to legitimately rank the centers would be to actually go back and watch all the old film from the 30s and 20s. And
I was about to say from 90 years ago.
Yeah, like we literally have guys in here who played in the 1920s. Like it's kind of difficult to go that far back and watch that kind of stuff. So, instead what we kind of did is we went through guys that had, awards they received for playing center for the Giants, whether it be All Pro, Pro Bowl, those kind of things. Then we looked at their careers, their accolades, and kind of went based on who had the most accolades. Because you can't do like we did with the receivers and go, oh, well, this guy had the most receiving yards of the 5-year stretch or whatever. Like, there's no stat like that. Back then, they didn't even share things like pancakes and percentage of plays and that kind of stuff. It was just like, yep, you played center, played 12 games.
Pretty much.
That was it. That was it. And the position also was so much different back in the day. You had a lot of times there was a huge thing of uneven lines. When we get to our number one spot, especially, that guy was well known for the uneven line where he'd line up, with like a 6 people on the line, and he'd be like the one all the way in the right or the left, even though he was a center, because that's the way the game was played back then. They moved things around to try to confuse people. So let's get right into the centers. Oh, yes. Center ourselves.
Zen. Zen.
So, very first up, we have Stan the Man Gallison. Now, his nickname was not the Man. I just want to call him Stan the Man because I want to call everybody named Stan the Man. It's just it's like same if I come across somebody named Stu, I'm going to call them Disco Stu. I can't help myself.
Disco Stu. Sounds like Duff Man.
Oh yeah. 6'3", 211 pounds. Played with the New York Giants from 1937 to 1939. His whole career, he only played in 9 games. And you're probably going, why the hell is he on this list? Well, it's because he went to the Pro Bowl in 1938. He went to the Pro Bowl in 1938, and he was also a member of the NFL championship team in 1938 as well. And you're going to see as we start going over the offensive linemen, basically the whole offensive line starters and backups went to the Pro Bowls in 1938. Like, and if you played offensive line for the Giants in 1938, you were probably very good. And when we get to the time we start talking about tackles in a few episodes, we're going to talk about one guy in particular who became the head coach for the New York Giants for many, many years. I think it was like 28 years. I don't know the notes in front of me here. But that guy was, in the end, just a sage as far as coaching the line specifically, and was a guy that, in the end, developed a lot of talent as a coach, and that's Mr. Steve Owen. Well, I got my notes now in front of me. It was 23 years as a coach, 24 years as a head coach, from 1930 to 1953. It's quite a stretch. That is quite a stretch.
That's a hell of a...
Yeah, it's almost a quarter of a century. That's like, woo. I'm just glad I made it past 5 years in one job for the first time in my life. So.
Yeah, right.
So yes, like I said, we started off with Stan Gullinson, and like I said, we don't have much information on the guy to give you guys because he did play in the 1930s. It's not like there's ample tape to watch from a guy who played in the 30s. And if he did, it was so grainy at that point you can't even see anything anymore. Basically, is what it boils down to. But like I said, he had a Pro Bowl year, so he's going to go on the list automatically. If you had a Pro Bowl year or an All-Pro year, you were on the list automatically. Next up, you thought that guy was old. Just wait.
They're older.
Yeah, Steve Wostapool, 6'3", 208 pounds, played with the Giants in 1929 and 1930. Yeah, only played 5 years in the league overall, but was an All-Pro at the center position in 1929. And you're going to see, as we talk about some of these old-timers as well, that a lot of these guys only played a few years. And I have to wonder, obviously, I wasn't alive during the time. I mean, hell, like my grandparents were children. And
I was going to say my grandparents were alive, I don't think.
Yeah. I think part of why this is because a lot of these guys probably had to go find actual jobs. The NFL didn't pay very well back then. It wasn't like, nowadays where it's like, oh, you want to sit on the bench and make $10 million? Like that wasn't an option back then. So,
yeah, we'll go through too with the tackles too, because there's some interesting stories what these guys did.
Oh yeah, we got the tackles. I'm telling you, we're gonna love that episode. We got tons of crazy stuff on that. But yeah, like I said, Joe Wostapool had the one All-Pro season in there, so he gets onto the list there. Now we're going to get to some more of the bigger names that people will remember, I think, pretty well here. We got the top 5 here as far as accolades. First up, Greg Larson, drafted in the 6th round, which is still 81st overall in the 6th round. Just tells you how much smaller the NFL was back then.
Yeah.
In 1961, played with the Giants from 61 to 73. He was a one-time NFL champ, but not with the Giants. And was a Pro Bowler in 1968, and that's what gets him on this list here. He actually started off as a right tackle for us, and then that's where we started moving him over to center eventually there from the tackle position. Kind of like a Nick Gates kind of situation there. We can kind of play over the field, but end up settling in at the center position there. And listen, anytime that you spend 13 years with one team,
or 13 years in the NFL.
Yeah, 13 years in the NFL alone is very good. Yeah, but yeah, that's really good to spend that long a time with one team. That says you're doing something right, especially to stay the starter for so long. That's not typical. So this was not the guy that you go, oh my God, this is the All-Pro every year. This is the Hall of Fame career. This was the steady lunch pail guy that basically came to work, did his thing, and did it above average for many years. So, like we always say, not everybody needs to be a star. Sometimes you just need the guys who do their job and do it well, and that's what Greg Larson was. So, like I said, so we got third up there was Greg Larson. Next up, it's a name I think a lot of people are going to remember here very well. One of the best free agent pickups in New York Giants history, Mr. Sean O'Hara.
Hmm.
Oh, yes. No relation to the actress Maureen O'Hara. At least that's to my knowledge. 6'3", 303 pounds. You see the
Now we're
difference?
talking about the big boys.
Yeah, now we're starting. This guy literally is like got 100 pounds of some of these guys on this list. Signed with the Giants from the Cleveland Browns in 2004. Played with the Giants from 2004 to 2010. And he was a one-time Super Bowl champ. Should have been a two-time champ. I remember there was a lot of fans saying we should have picked him back up in 2011 and try to get him to come out of retirement just to get him a second ring once we got to the playoffs. There was that feeling because there was just that much respect for the guy. He was just a well-revered player from the fans, from his teammates, from the NFL community as a whole. He was a second-team All-Pro in 2008. He was a Pro Bowler in 08, 09, and 2010. So a 3-year stretch to end his career as a Pro Bowler. So talk about saving the best for last.
Well, I know that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, exactly. And he luckily got over to the Giants as well, because when the Browns had him, they were underutilizing him. He wasn't even starting for them. He comes over to us and becomes a star. And sometimes that's what it is, change of scenery, and that's what it was for this guy. So, like I said, I think he definitely goes down as one of the best free agent signings we ever made, because in the end, not only was he a big contributor, but it was also a cheap deal we got him because he wasn't a big name. We kind of plucked this guy from obscurity, put him as starting center, and he grew into being one of the best offensive linemen, not just that we had, but in the NFL as a whole. If you're in the Pro Bowl multiple years in a row, you are one of the best at your position.
You're doing something right.
NFL. Exactly. So, I think we would kill to have a guy like him. If John Michael Schmitz turns out to be half the player that Sean O'Hara was, I think we'll be pretty happy. And you got to wonder where a guy like John Michael Schmitz could end up on this list potentially long term, as we're talking about him as well. I mean, we just went through a couple of names here that we're talking about, like one Pro Bowl. This is the first guy we had multiple Pro Bowls with. This is not a position that the Giants have this hallowed history with, except for maybe a couple guys.
There's a couple guys on this list that are.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys, but it's not like it's like pass rushers, linebackers, where you go through this list and it's like a who's who of people that are well-known names. So he's got an opportunity at a position that we haven't had, the best of luck with per se, So like I said, just begs the question of where he might end up being when his career's up. He could have even just a couple of years of good play and be on this list very easily. So
very easy with our coaching staff and what we're expecting to see JSN do. Like you said, if he's just half the player that O'Hara was, he's in good company.
Oh yeah. All righty. So on to another player here that I think a lot of y'all will remember as well. Played during the old Big Blue Wrecking Crew era here. Bart Oates. Not of Hall & Oates, just Bart Oates.
You sure?
He was the same era he played during, so 6'4", 275 pounds. Signing with the Giants at 26 years old after playing his first 3 seasons in the old USFL. Oh, yes, the USFL. We're going back to those days. Ended up playing with the Giants there from 1985 to 1991. So good
good stretch.
Yeah, good 6-year stretch there. 7-year stretch, that'd be. 2-time Super Bowl champ. Like I said, he was part of that Big Blue Wrecking Crew era there. So he got 2 rings with us there. And got also a few Pro Bowls in there as well. So Pro Bowler in 1990, 1991, and 1993. So I think what kind of puts him just above Sean O'Hara is the fact that he was just part of 2 Super Bowl teams in the end, where Sean O'Hara unfortunately retired 1 year early and only has the 1 ring. He did also play his last 2 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers and got a 3rd ring with them. And he's actually got kind of an interesting post-Giants and post-NFL, story going as well. So I was unaware of this till we were researching for this episode. Apparently, while he was still playing with the Giants, he was actually going to law school at the off season and in the evenings at Seton Hall University. Kind of a good school there in the area. Kind of a good school. So he actually got his law degree in 1990 while still a player. And now he's a lawyer who specializes in real estate. And he's also the chairman of the NJ Hall of Fame. So, good to hear he's still doing things with his life outside of football. You hear some of these guys that when they're done playing, it's kind of like, what now? Like, this man had a plan. That shows intelligence.
Yeah.
Intelligence is something that people don't look at often when it comes to the center position. But you're basically the QB of the O-line. This is the guy who's calling out the plays. He's not just snapping the ball and going. He's looking at the line. He's reading things. He's helping guys in the line adjust. Exactly. He's a QB's best friend if he's good at his job. And Bart Oates was very good at his job. So, not Hall of Fame, obviously, but Hall of Very Good. Which I should stop saying because we found out it actually is a thing and he's not actually in the Hall of Very Good, but there actually is a Hall of Very Good.
Oh. What about his law degree? What about his practicing law? Is he just very good, or is he Hall of Fame?
I can't say on that, but I'm saying you're in Jersey, so next time you need some help with the real estate, feel free to call Bart Oates at that point and let me know how he was for you.
I'll give him a call this weekend.
There you go. All righty. So we have next up here. We're going back in time again. We're going back into our time.
We're gonna go back in time.
With Ray Wietecha, 6'1", 225 pounds, drafted in the 12th round of 1950. And that's another thing you'll see because we're going back in time a lot more for the offensive line groups here than we have with some of the guys there because the Giants had really good offensive lines back in the day, the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah, 75 years ago.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talked about the quarterback issues they had and the playing issues they had in the 70s because they couldn't protect. We went through that gap where we couldn't, and I think it's important for Giant fans to understand the history of the team overall because we were very, very good for many years. We had elite line. Elite. Then we had a stretch where we had a bad line. We couldn't win a damn thing. Then we go over to, the Eli years, and the line got rebuilt for a while, and he won a couple Super Bowls. Then the line sucked again, and we sucked again. Coincidence, guys?
We suck again.
Yes. You can do it.
Listen, a good offensive line will win you a lot of games. They'll make a decent quarterback look good and make a decent running back look better. So it all gets set up.
And it'll turn me from just horribly shitty as a quarterback to just horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, 12th round pick out of 1950, and it's amazing to see how many late round picks we had back in the day at the offensive line position that turned into very good players. And I'm actually was looking at a lot of the old drafts in general, and I don't know if it's because this was pre the days of Mel Kiper and all these people that got huge into drafts, and it wasn't as big a thing. It was more like a crapshoot. But oh my God, like some of the picks that got made that became like great players and were drafted in like the 300th round. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but I'm saying like there were so many rounds back then, and so many guys picked so late. In fact, when we go over the tackle position there in a couple of days, we're going to go over for you guys the Hall of Famer drafted that the highest number overall pick ever. He was a New York Giant and a very well-known one at that. Back to Ray here. So again, played with the Giants from 1953 to 1962. So a good 10-year stretch there. A one-time NFL champ. Obviously, we're talking about going back to the Frank Gifford years now. Was a first-team All-Pro 1958. Second-team All-Pro in 59, 62. Pro Bowler in 57, 58, 60, and 62. So that's damn good career to go ahead and get 4 Pro Bowls in a 10-year stretch like that. That's pretty good in 3 of those years to make the first or second all-pro team there as well. When he was done playing, he actually followed a certain coach we had over to Green Bay, Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi, keep in mind, was an assistant with the New York Giants back in the day. And he was his offensive coordinator in Green Bay during the first 2 Super Bowls. So that's a cool little footnote for him, as well as being a great player, had been an offensive coordinator with 2 rings. He coached for quite a while. In fact, he was the New York Giants offensive line coach from 72 to 76. So like they always say, once a Giant, always a Giant. He came back home. But like I said, just his playing career alone, like I said, can't kill a stretch at all when you have 40% of your season so you go to the Pro Bowl.
If he's in baseball, he's getting the big ass contract.
Oh yeah, listen, if he was playing football now, he'd be getting a big ass contract. Unfortunately, he played in the 50s when people didn't get paid that much. Here's your $100 for the game. Good job.
Yeah. Take a bubble gum.
Take your slap in the ass and go home.
Yeah.
That's what it was back then. It wasn't like it is now at all. So
here's your pack of camels and chewing gum. See you next week, kid.
But like I said, pretty good for a 12th round pick.
It's so weird to say.
12th round pick. Alrighty, guys, we got one more here. So we're going to go into the number 1, and I don't say we're not ranking, but this guy is definitely going to be ranked number 1 overall center in Giants history. We're calling it either way.
Yeah, you can't not say that.
We do have a couple comments here. My dad chimes in and says, "Not sure how long I can watch, but I'm online now." And then John S. Anderson Jr. says, "Ooh, new background for Roberto. Can you grab a box of mac and cheese and cook it up for me? Me so horny. Oops, LOL. I mean, me so hungry." It's okay, John.
The macaroni.
You can be both hungry and horny, John. It's okay. You can just say yes, as long as he's not looking for.
As long as I eat hot dogs.
I'm saying Cheerios.
Yeah.
Leave those Cheerios alone. What did that box do to you? Alrighty, number 1 then. Hall of Famer. This man played from 1931 to 1945. Was a member of the inaugural class of the NFL Hall of Fame in 1963. We're talking about the one, the only, the legendary Mel Hein, 6'2", 225 pounds. Signed with the Giants in 1931. Yeah, we're going way back. Way back. Played with the Giants from 1931 to 1945. That's a
ridiculously long career, especially back then.
That's insanity. It's 15 years as a center. Like, that's like unheard of. So remember a couple of years ago, I guess 2010 now, actually, what's to say a couple of years ago? Feels like a couple of years ago because I'm old.
13.
Yeah. The NFL did its special on the 100 greatest players ever in the NFL in honor of the 100th anniversary of the first NFL game. He ended up number 96 in that list. The man hasn't played in 80 years, folks. He started playing almost like a little over 90 years ago. Well, no, 80 years ago. Hold on. My math's off here. No, 90. Yeah, I'm right. Okay. And here he is, still considered one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So Gil Brand of NFL.com listed him as the 3rd best center to ever play the game. Bleacher Report had him listed at the 7th best center to ever play the game. Again, the guy hasn't played in 80 or 90 years. And he's still thought of that high. And he still holds with that kind of reverence. And, that's even taking out the fact that, let's be honest, again, we're talking about the size stuff. He was 6'2", 225. He's the size of a safety nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah.
But
I look at it, I'm like, I'm 5'10", 220. Like, this guy's not that much bigger than I am.
I'm bigger than him.
Yeah.
I got 40 pounds on him and 5 inches of height. But in the end, what he did was just absolutely amazing for his time. he is, like I said, a guy who moved all over the line as a center. That was something they did back in the 30s and all, where they would move the center around, trying to figure out where to put, him at his best spot, because they wanted to go ahead and, throw the offense off. That was how they wanted to throw the offense off its game. And we talked about Steve Owen before. This was back in that Steve Owen days. And literally, you'd see the line, a stacked line of like 6, 7 guys. And there would be Mel Hein on either side of the line, with the line being so off balance, it doesn't even look right when you're watching it. And he'd have to do that, snap the ball, move around. And he did a lot of the stuff that you still see nowadays in the game for the very first time. You would see him on plays take a step back, slide over to help protect one of the edges. Like, that was unheard of back in those days. That wasn't what you did. You just took care of the guy in front of you. He was pulling as a center back in those days. All the things that you see nowadays that players are doing that is so typical in the NFL. This was the guy. This was the first guy to do it. And he did it damn well. In his career, he was a 2-time NFL champ, went to 7 championship games overall in his career. So we're talking about a 15-year career. So half of the time he went to the, what was the equivalent to the Super Bowl back then, but obviously there wasn't as many teams, and the AFL, NFL merger hadn't happened yet. But yeah, half the time you're going to the championship game, you run some good teams.
Solid.
I mean, granted, only having 2 championships out of the 7 is kind of crappy, but that's.
I mean, it's 2 more than a lot of the players that have ever walked into the NFL. So
listen, I'm just saying, it's like the Atlanta Braves and the Buffalo Bills. More the Atlanta Braves because they actually won one. Here's the big one. In 1938, he won the Joe Carr Award. And you guys might be saying, what the hell is the Joe Carr Award? Well, that's what they called the MVP back then. From 1938 to 1946, they called it the Joe Carr Award. The guy won MVP of the league from the center position. Position.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he the only guy to ever do that?
The only offensive lineman to ever win MVP of the league. Could you imagine a guy like Creed Humphreys winning MVP next season?
Be absurd.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. It's just a difference in how things were played. And he played. When I mean played, he played every single damn game. His actual nickname was Old Indestructible, which just sounds weird. It just sounds like an old-timey nickname. Like nowadays, that's way too long. Old Indestructible. But that's what they called him. We're talking.
It's also because back in the 30s and 40s, you had to call everyone old. See here, the old kid here.
And
makes no sense. You just call him indestructible.
These old timies. So here's the awards we're talking for him. He was first team All-Pro in 1934, 1950. 1934, 1935, 1938, 1939, and 1940. I have him listed here as a second team All-Pro as well in my notes, but I can tell that my notes are definitely incorrect. This is one of the same years I had listed as the first team All-Pro. 1941, he was listed as second team All-Pro as well. So you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years first team, 1 year second team. 6. Again, half of his career.
That's about 40% of his career right there.
The best in the league at the position. He was a Pro Bowler from 1938 to 1941. Obviously, the Pro Bowl wasn't around for some of these years. That's why we're talking about that. Here's one of the other bigger things, too. And it's part of what sets him apart because of the time frame he played in. But he also played defense. He was a linebacker. And I actually was watching some of the tape of him as a linebacker. And it's hard to say if he was a pure stud on defense because, again, we're not going to go back and watch all the games.
No.
I'm sorry. I can't watch the games from like the 1930s. I just can't do it. I don't have the time. My boss would fire me for never being at work. And back then they didn't hold on to stats like tackles, sacks, and that kind of stuff. Or they weren't talked about. They weren't figured out. So, and nobody's gone back and done it because again, the film is so grainy and old and everything. Then a lot of it's lost. But I can tell you this: some of the hits I saw this man put, like he was smacking people down. He did not care about his body whatsoever. He would just go and do his thing.
And lay that smack it down.
He actually was talking about. I saw an interview with him that they did about him in the 1950s, and he was talking about how he's very glad he played in that era because he said, "I would have been upset if I had to sit down for that long and just watch my team and not be out there helping." That's the mentality he had.
That's why he's old and indestructible, right?
Old, indestructible. Think about it. He played. How many times you go, "Oh, the defense is gassed. They've been on the field for a long time." He played every damn play.
Yeah, nonstop. And it's not like he had oxygen on the sideline either.
Yeah, he wasn't getting, popping an Adderall pill before the game, and it wasn't, not that any of the NFL players now do that. No, they would never.
They would never.
Never. But this is the kind
back in the old school. This is an old school day where you take off your helmet and light a cigarette.
If you had a helmet.
yeah.
Some of these guys were leather helmets at that point.
We would say the leather.
Yeah. It was like it was more like a hat. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a different era entirely. And he was part of that leather helmet days because I just had to look it up out of curiosity. They didn't bring out the plastic helmets like they use nowadays until 1949. So yeah, Mel Hein was wearing just a slap of leather on his head, going at people head on as a defender, snapping the ball and getting right down and dirty as a center, and just doing it all play long. Like I said, just
nonstop offense and defense.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I could tell you, he, as a defender, was getting some interceptions too as well. The guy had 10 interceptions in his career, and they only started counting that stat in 1940. And again, keep in mind, the guy played linebacker. So you're talking 6 years, and he had 10 interceptions. So that's...
What about the other 10 years where it's not counted?
When he was in his prime.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's a really interesting story overall to look into what he did and how he played it. I definitely recommend anybody who hasn't watched him before, take a look at some of the tape and see what he did, because it was very impressive how he played the game. And he's somebody that I think if you're a historian of the NFL, if you're a guy who watches NFL nonstop and knows a lot of the old players like that, you'll know who he is. But if you're just a casual fan, and that's fine if you are, listen, we all got lives outside of football.
One of those young whippersnappers.
Yeah, or if you're just younger and never heard of the guy, look him up. I'm telling you, this is a Hall of Fame career. That's not like Tony Baselli Hall of Fame where you go, how do you get in? I know, I just mocked Tony Baselli a little bit. It's okay. I actually like Tony Baselli too, but too short a career to be in the Hall of Fame. This was a guy that played so long, played both sides of the ball, was the best center of his era by far, and will probably never have a center outplay this guy in most of the Giants, history overall. I mean, the chances of having a guy beat out what this guy did is so slim, it's not even funny. I mean, the guy was a member of the 1930s NFL All-Decade Team. He was a member of the NFL 75th Anniversary All-Time Team. He was a member of the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. He's a member of the New York Giants Ring of Honor. He is his number's retired. Number 7's retired by the New York Giants, who have never seen another number 7. His number's also retired at Washington State, where he played as well. And he's in the Hall of Fame at the Washington State University as well. I mean, like I said, this is just one of those careers, man. And he went in to be a coach afterwards as well. The guy coached literally from 1943 3, because he actually did, even while he was still coaching, playing for the Giants, he actually did a little side coaching as well for Union College. And he was a coach until 1965. Talk about a guy that's loved the game. Loved it.
Age.
And again,
Non-stop.
yeah. But again, this guy wasn't making the career that that a lot of the NFL players nowadays get. It wasn't like he was doing, Wheaties boxes and, getting $1 million a game to play the sport. He was playing it because he loved it. So, yeah, you gotta just, appreciate that kind of player and that kind of history and that kind of thing there. So, any final thoughts you might have here on Mr. Mel Hein there, Rob?
I mean, we could talk about this guy all day. Like I said before we even jumped on this podcast, this guy has so much accolades to his career that we can make just a podcast about him.
Yeah.
And go over it, break down year by year.
And we very well at some point may do that kind of thing with some of the better players, the Hall of Fame caliber players that we had with the New York Giants. We'll see how it goes, during the off seasons when there's less content to make off of the current team. That's what we're planning on doing. We don't have an off season, unlike the Giants slackers. We just keep on going like Shane and Abel.
Get a summer job.
But guys, we have coming up for you guys. We're going to go over the guards for the New York Giants, the greatest guards to play the game, and also the greatest tackles. So we're going to continue doing the offensive line series for you guys, going over the best that ever played the position. And I'm telling you, there's some good stories coming, especially the tackle one. We've mentioned it a couple times. I'm excited when we do that.
Me too.
Tackle one. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ignoring the guards per se. Nothing to sneeze at, but but we have some really, really exciting tackle stories, between talking about one of the greatest tackles to ever play the game, as far as we have a guy who was basically like the Giants version of Pat Tillman of the 1940s. We have a story like that as well. So we have a lot of stories to give you guys. So, keep an eye here. As we have an Eagle fan here, I see chiming in also, talking trash. He says, as an Eagles fan, thank you for paying Daniel Jones. This dude provides comic relief every week and gives us 2 free wins every year. And I'll just say this as far as that, because we won't beat the trolls too much here, but let's see what happens to your quarterback that you paid after one good year. The guy who fumbled and messed up your Super Bowl. So, when you get multiple rings, we'll talk, dude. Until then, bye-bye. He's Eagle fan. I love it. Eagle fans like, oh, we swept you. Who cares? I would gladly lose every single game to the Eagles ever if it meant we continue getting 1 Super Bowl ring every decade. Gladly, I will take every single loss to the Eagles without a single complaint, because that's what we care about. We care about rings. Eagles fans aren't used to rings, therefore they care about sweeps. That's all they have to live for. It's all they have to live for.
Listen, the ring is way more valuable than a broom.
Exactly, guys. All righty. So like I said, we'll be back again on Wednesday for you guys talking about the gods. We'll be back again on Thursday again talking about the tackles.
Tackle Thursdays. Obviously,
if stuff comes up, we'll go ahead and give you guys more updates on that as things go. And Steve chimes in again. He says, imagine paying a bum who had 15 touchdowns, $40 million. Hey, how about imagine having a bum that played against the best supporting cast the NFL had to offer and still couldn't win a Super Bowl? Just saying. Pipe down there. Calling it like it is, man. Calling it like it is. You give the guy 2,000-yard receivers, one of the best running backs in the game, the best offensive line in the game, one of the better tight ends in the game, and he still can't win you a Super Bowl. Pipe down. The adults are talking. Just saying. Just saying. You got 1 ring. When you get multiple rings, we'll talk, okay? Join the multiple ring club. The rest of the NFC East has been there for years. The truth. We've all been there for 30 years. Washington. as Deb chimes in. It's fun learning about players in the past. Deb, I got to tell you, I think Rob and I really, don't get me wrong, we enjoy doing this as a whole, obviously. We wouldn't do it otherwise. Let's be very frank. It's not like any of us getting uber rich off this. But we love learning stuff we didn't know before about the Giants because we've both been passionate fans for so long. And while obviously some of the bigger names out that we're talking about here in these groups, the guys like the Mel Hines we knew of, but we're still learning things about them while doing this. We're still learning about some other guys. And I think I've watched more Mel Hein tape the last couple of days than I have ever. So yeah, that's it's a nice part of it. Oh, we got the troll back again. He says, Giant fans talking about the past. I guess you shared that in the comment with the Cowgirl fans. Your bum QB gave us 3 easy wins last year. Oh, look, he had to resort to misogyny because he can't actually figure out a comeback. The Cowgirls. Oh. He sounds like a nice guy. I'll just say this.
The Giants also didn't start their starters week 17 against Philly, so.
Yeah. No, but here's the thing, though. Eagle fans love to bash when any of the team talks about the past because they have no past.
I was going to say, there's no past there.
We're going to brag about Donovan McNabb puking in the Super Bowl because he could.
Didn't know the game could end in a tie.
Yeah. Like I said, Eagle fans just gone. Anyway, guys. All right. So, again, we'll be back on for you later on this week to continue talking about the offensive linemen. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about the centers being the center of attention here today. We definitely liked having you guys on here. Hope you all learned something as well, because we all learned something during this whole process here, except for the fact that it's fun to mess with Eagles fans. we already knew that. Again, guys, we'll be back on here later this week. So if you guys are on live with us, appreciate it. As always, we are on live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and my LinkedIn profile. Oh, yes, my LinkedIn
Great view.
Oh, yes. And with that, of course, also, we're available on every single podcast platform pretty much known to man. If you like this show and you wanted to sponsor this show, down here in the corner, we have the buymeacupofcoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Sponsor the show and you get a shout out in the next episode, as well as also a sticker mailed to you there. I still have to mail a couple people actually stickers. I got stuck at work on Wednesday, so I didn't get a chance to do this Wednesday. So anybody did sponsor the show previously that's listening, Deb has, we're going to be doing that here soon. John, also, if you're still watching, I need your address. We can send you some stickers too, man. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and get everybody those out as well soon here. We're going to have a new thing starting up on there as well. You will see live on there if you go to that website. We're going to start doing a monthly sponsorship option as well for people that want to. It's going to get you some extra stuff as well. Obviously, we're not just saying, give us money, please. We're going to try to actually give you guys a little extra for it as well there. So take a look at that. It is option to sign up now, but it's not. We haven't been talking about it yet because we have to actually finish setting some of that up for you guys. But like I said, we'll have that up and running soon. Again, that's buymeacupofcoffee.com/2 Giant Goofballs. Oh, yeah. All righty, guys. Again, we'll be back on for you guys here Wednesday night. Until then, stay safe. Go to the beach. Have some fun like I did. Wear some sunscreen. Don't be an idiot like I was. And as always, Giant fans,
go
G-Man! Go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support. If you made it this long, you must have enjoyed it. So I am sure you have followed us on all the social media platforms. Of course, you have subscribed to the show on your favorite app as well and given us a top rating. Right? Right? Right?